Hi everyone, welcome back to the channel. In this video I want to share with you the following two details. What I went through with my first encounter with stage fright about 30 years ago. And also the resource that I stumbled across about 20 years ago, which got rid of stage fright for good. So let me tell you about my first experience with stage fright. I remember the moment so vividly, even though it was 30 years ago. It was the spring of 1991 in Belfast, and I was in my last year studying music at Queen's University. The day of my finals recital was finally here. The day that I had been putting in upwards in 3 hours of daily practice for about the previous year. You know, I even remember the exact pieces that I played and the order that I performed them in. The first was Brahms' Sonata in G major, opus 78. And then I followed that with Kreisler's Preludium and Allegro. The piano accompanist had been one of my former school teachers, an incredibly gifted pianist whose hands were a mirror image of those of Rachmaninoff. They just glided over the piano with ease, and what always stood out to me when he was accompanying on the piano was the ease at which he adapted to the continual accelerandos and ritenutos that I played on the violin. Now, the annual Finals Recital was always held in the Hearty Room, which was a distinctive Tudor-style concert hall within the university's music building, with exposed oak beams and a stunning stained glass window, which served as the backdrop to the stage. It was beautiful. So there I was, standing behind the slightly ajar door at the back of the Hearty Room, with my sheet music tucked under one arm and the violin and bow tucked under the other. And I remember peering up through the central aisle of the audience, looking up towards the stage, and I can clearly recall the feeling of utter dread which came over me as I was waiting on all the performers in the programme order before me to finish. I actually remember whispering to myself at that time, this is the worst feeling I've ever had. I was only 21 at the time. I felt physically sick and my hands were like jelly. The student before me was just reaching the end of their pieces, and I remember thinking I just wanted to leave and get out of the building and do anything rather than walk up through that central aisle of the audience. But as you probably realise, I had no choice in the matter. This was counting towards my finals. So my name was inevitably called out, and I went up on the stage and I did survive. I played through my 2 pieces, all the while my right hand not being able to fully manage control of the bow, and of my left hand, the lifelines. I remember looking down at them and they were filling up with beads of sweat. The left hand fingers, when I was playing through my pieces, I just couldn't really get control of them. They felt like little ice skates trying to stand up on the actual fingerboard. I kept trying to talk myself into controlling my fingers on the violin with more confidence mid-performance, but I really had no control over them the whole way during that performance on stage. I got through the finals recital, but I did come off the stage feeling so angry at myself and frustrated at myself for not being able to control that stage fright during the recital. Now, what happened that afternoon 30 years ago, that had never happened to me before. Never. You know, from the age of 7, I've been playing the violin. I've been playing in school orchestras, competitions. I'd even performed the violin with the James Last Orchestra when I was 13 and again at 15. And there were no nerves back then at all. At a time when you think there would have been, but there were no nerves at all. So this stage fright took hold of me on the day of my recitals for my finals. So clearly the problem needed fixing, and that repair job began to manifest itself when I stumbled across an article in a woman or woman's own magazine that I was reading. Now I'm going back 20 years. And the article was all about a CD called Inner Talk, with the particular CD being called Freedom from Fears. It explained that this particular CD, that was one of a whole range, contained either music or nature audio recordings, throughout which whisperings could be faintly heard, but weren't able to be clearly deciphered. And the whisperings were positive affirmations, including I am confident, I am poised, I am relaxed, I am free of fear, I remain calm, I breathe deeply, all these sort of positive statements. The magazine article then went on to explain that each CD came with its printed list of the positive statements, and these statements and the audio CD, which lasted about 40 minutes, were recommended as daily reading and daily listening, once per day, with the ultimate goal being removing the negative thoughts in the subconscious and replacing them with positive thoughts, re-scripting our own inner talk with positive self-beliefs. Now I decided to go ahead and order one of these CDs. So I ordered the Freedom from Fears one, and I also ordered another one which was called Especially for Musicians. And its positive affirmations contained statements such as, I can improvise effortlessly, I have a great stage presence, I play with great confidence, I love my work, I'm getting better and better at playing each day, and all sort of statements like this. So as I say, I bought the CDs, those two CDs, Freedom from Fears and Especially for Musicians. And every evening I would read through the list of affirmations. It was a list, it was, I would say, probably about 30 on each CD. Short statements that you read through once a day before you listened to your audio, which, as I said, was 40 minutes long. So what I did was I read through the statements and then put in the earphones and went to sleep at night listening to the audio. So I fell asleep with it. Now I have no scientific or psychological background or experience, and I don't claim to know or understand how this audio technology works. But quite honestly, within 3 or 4 weeks of listening to these on a daily basis, I began to realise that when I was playing the violin in front of people, the lifelines in my hands were not filling up with sweat anymore. That was the first physical thing that I could see. Then I became aware of having more control of my fingers on the fingerboard of the violin. They didn't feel like jelly anymore. They were actually able to press down confidently on the fingerboard. Now that was 20 years ago I stumbled across these CDs. And since that time I have never experienced the sweat in the palms of my hands or the uncontrollable feeling of jelly in my left hand or my right hand for the bow of the violin. Over the years I've bought multiple MP3s of these CD titles because the CDs that I used to have, they've been listened to that much, they became badly scratched and worn. So as I say, now I buy them in downloadable MP3 formats of the nature and of the music backgrounds. Simply put, the Inner Talk CDs, and there's a whole range of them, helped me overcome stage fright. And all I know is that dread which overcame me whilst waiting in the wings to go out on the stage that day has never incapacitated me since. I hope you've got something from my talk. If you have, give me a thumbs up and hit the subscribe button. Thanks for listening.